It is my unbelievable joy to get to introduce our next speaker. We heard earlier today that sales, it's about psychology. And so often, founders want to skip to, no, just tell me what to do, give me the playbook. I don't need to spend a lot of time changing my frame of thinking. Sales in general is a profession that is really misunderstood. And there are a lot of cartoonish imaginings that we have about what it means to be a good salesperson. Do you have to be a certain personality type to be a successful seller? I'm really excited to have Jason come up and present on having the right sales mindset. This is a critical session for any founder that really wants to embrace sales and growth and to learn and develop in this way. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Jason to come up on the stage. He's a great friend of mine and a former colleague from Service Titan, and I think we're all in for an incredible treat. Help me welcome Jason to the stage.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Woo, that's my beat too. Man, you could have let that ride a little bit longer.
Hey,
Bring that back.
on my demo.
Yeah. How's
Did y'all
everybody
boys
doing
not
today?
get the memo?
Man, let's kick this thing off right. When I say good morning, I want to hear y'all say, what up, Ferg? Good morning. Let's run that back one more time. Good morning.
What up, Ferg?
Yeah, now we're locked in. Let's go. We can cut the beat. So when Anna asked me to come speak, there's often an array of topics that I get to speak on, but this topic right here is the one. Anything mindset for me is the thing that I get most passionate about. But sales mindset more specifically, like this is the thing that gets me going. And what I found in my 15 years of being a sales leader and an IC is that a strong sales mindset is equal to a strong life mindset. And today we're gonna unpack the two, right? We're gonna unlock the hidden connection between life and sales success. Now, growing up in the streets of LA, I was an athlete. Like my life, my goal was to be an NFL football player. Like I was the kid that would walk through the living room, like I'd juke out the coffee table, do like a front flip onto the bed. Like I was obsessed. So by the time I get to high school, I'm so locked in. I'm like, yo, I'm one step closer to getting to college, maybe going to the NFL. But the challenge was, I'm 5'0" nothing. And at the time, I was like 125 pounds. But that didn't stop me. Like I was so locked in, like I knew what I wanted. So by the end of my junior season in high school, I was getting recruited by some of the top colleges in the country, like coming to my living room, calling me on the phone, sending me letters, like I was getting courted by all these big schools. And I'll never forget the feeling that came with nobody offering me the scholarship. Like I knew it was because I was so little. So I devised this game plan. I'm gonna go to every camp in person and show these coaches in person what I could do. So the first camp up was Nike camp. I'm clowning. The talk of the camp. And I was this little guy with a big fro, red gloves, so I stood out like a disco ball in a library, right? Next camp on my list was USC camp. And like this was my dream school. This is where I wanted to go. And the coach looked me in my eyes and said, man, you're not what we're looking for. We're not gonna be recruiting you. And I remember that feeling. I was like, all right, on to the next, UCLA camp. I'm like, okay, if USC doesn't want me, I'm gonna go to UCLA and destroy these cats, right? So I go to the UCLA camp and I wind up tearing my ACL. And when I tore my ACL, the doctor said, man, you're gonna miss your entire senior season. And I remember the feeling that came like, oh my God, what now? Right? All the coaches stopped recruiting me. Literally, all the phone calls stopped. All the house visits stopped. My senior year came and went that fast. I watched the entire season from the sidelines. And now it's 2 weeks before signing day. And there's a signing day, it's National Letter of Intent Day, where you basically make your commitment and you tell everybody where you're gonna be going. You sign your letter of intent. And I'm sitting in my coach's class, and the head coach from the University of Hawaii walks in. And I recognized him from TV. I'm like, yo, that's June Jones. And then there's this voice that's in my head like, man, you should go talk to him. But he didn't come there to recruit me. He was there to recruit a teammate of mine who was outside talking to another school. So here I am having this internal conflict, like, go talk to him. Well, what do I say? Man, get up and go talk to him. So I get up, I walk over to him, I introduce myself, and I point to the TV in the corner that had my highlight tape on top of it. And I ask him if he'll watch my tape. While he was waiting, he obliged. He walks over, pops in the tape, and offers me a full scholarship on the spot. Now, a lot of cats go, Ferg, you got real lucky. And I'm like, yeah, I got real lucky. But I chose to be pathologically optimistic. And by pathologically optimistic mean I decided to focus on the possibility of good rather than the possibility of negativity or what I can't do. And it was that pathological optimism that presented this moment when coach walked in as an opportunity rather than me being bitter or jealous or a hater because he was there to recruit somebody else. Now let's talk about how this transitions into sales, right? How does this transition into sales? As a seller, we have to truly believe that if a customer shows up and they're qualified, they are the best customer on the planet. Like, this is our customer. This is our opportunity. We have to believe that if a customer shows up, we have the ability to show up as our best selves and change this customer's life. Our product can transform this customer's life. We have to believe that if we lose a deal, because we all lose deals, right? It's gonna happen. We'll coach to that later. We'll inspect those behaviors later. But if we lose a deal, we have to immediately go to the next one's the best one. The next opportunity is the best opportunity. In football, my coach once told me, Ferg, one snap and clear. And what that means is, if you drop a pass or catch a touchdown, let it go. The next play is the best play. Now, how do we become more pathologically optimistic? For one, metacognition. This is the act of thinking about your thinking. This is the act of thinking about your thinking. How many people in here take inventory on their thoughts daily or weekly? Show of hands. Like, we have to be intentional about thinking about our thinking. According to the National Science Foundation, 80% of our thoughts are negative, and 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. If you know that, how else can you combat that if you're not intentional? Next, intentional ignorance. Intentional ignorance. We have to be intentionally ignorant and avoid anything that will prevent us from showing up as the best version of ourselves. For example, opportunity notes, right? How many AEs look at the op notes and they see it's a cold outbound opportunity, it's a non-DM opportunity, and all of a sudden this op sucks, right? If that's going to push you into that opportunity feeling like it's not the right op or you're not in the best version of yourself, we have to ignore it. We have to be intentionally ignorant to it. Now, my career, right, goes on. I get to the University of Hawaii, and now it's my sophomore year, and I'm a starter. And it's the first game of the season, and guess who we're playing? USC. What? It's literally first game of the season. We're playing USC. My entire family's there, and now I'm a starter as a sophomore. I got a 3-year run ahead of me. And we win the kickoff, and we elect to receive the ball, and I'm standing on the sidelines next to my coach, and our starting kick returner can't find his helmet. And for those of you that don't know football, right, they kick the ball off, and there's the guy who waits back, catches it, and runs full speed. That's the kick returner. So while this guy's looking for his helmet, I'm standing next to my coach, and I look up at him, and he looks down at me, and we're having this like nonverbal communication, and I pop my helmet on and run out there. And I remember the roar of the crowd, dude. Like, I remember it being so loud, I could only hear myself breathe in my helmet. It was crazy, and then boom, they kicked the ball off, and I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. And I get the ball, and I run full speed. Somebody tries to take out my leg, and I stick my foot in the ground. I feel it click. I fall to the ground, and I get up, and I remember I go to the huddle, and I'm looking at our starting quarterback, Colt Brennan, and I'm like, man, I felt something in my knee. And I'm so distraught, I missed the play call. So delay a game, because of me, we get a penalty. I stay on the field for another 8 plays. Like, I'm refusing to leave the field. I'm like, yo, I worked so hard to get here. God himself is gonna have to come down and take me off this field. And eventually I had to get off the field. Couldn't run, adrenaline wore off. So I go get an MRI. As it turns out, I tear my ACL again. I tear my medial and lateral meniscus, and because I stayed on the field for 9 plays, I fractured my femur. My career ended like that. And I went through what they call identity foreclosure, where your entire identity is wrapped up in the thing that you do, and then you lose it, and it's like, who are you? Who am I now? What am I supposed to do now? Jason Ferguson that everybody associated with football, and this thing is now gone, and I lost my fucking mind. I became a drug addict for 10 years. Addicted to Oxycontin. And a lot of people are like, oh man, but you probably got addicted because the doctors were prescribing you pills. No, I got addicted because I was lost and I was trying to mask the pain that I was feeling. So I show up after I graduate by the skin of my teeth at my parents' house, and my mom opens the door and she doesn't even recognize me. Raccoon eyes, like I hadn't slept in days, face looking all crazy, acne like crazy because I'm not taking care of myself. And eventually my mom has to kick me out. Because I'm stealing, robbing, I'm doing everything that you would associate with a drug addict. So now I have nowhere to go. It's Skid Row or my brother's couch. So I go to my brother's apartment, I'm on his couch, and I'm going through withdrawals because I can't find any Oxy on the streets. And when my brother's at work, I'm like, you know what? I'm about to go rob this pharmacy. I know where my brother keeps his gun, so I go get the gun, I put it on the coffee table, grab my hoodie, my shorts, and now I'm psyching myself up like I'm about to go out on a football field or something. And eventually I'm like, all right, let's go. I get the gun, I put it in my waistband, I start walking out. And my mom calls. At that exact moment, I go back onto the couch. And as my mom's talking, I start thinking to myself, man, I need to be radically accountable for my life. I'm about to go kill somebody or maybe accidentally get killed. Like, we all see the videos, right, where there's no harmful intentions, but because they got a weapon, next thing you know, they're dead. Like, this was my future. I needed to be radically accountable about my behavior and about the outcome of my life that I desire. How does that translate to sales? Think about it. How does radical accountability translate to sales? We have to stop pointing the fingers externally and start looking internally for that desired outcome. We all know the excuses. What do they sound like, right? The leads are weak, right? The SDRs are failing us. Marketing's not doing their job, right? Onboarding's failing, setting the customers up, so it's creating bad reviews, and now I can't sell through it. Man, no, we gotta own it. We have to be radically accountable for the outcome that we desire. And here's the beauty. When you're radically accountable, that's what fosters creativity. That's what fosters massive action. Let me put it in perspective real quick, right? My team, they have a 25K CMRR need in order to hit quota. Meaning each AE needs 25K in CMRR per month if we're closing at a 40% clip, which we do. And I know if my team gets 25K per rep and we close at a 40% clip, they'll hit their number. So if my AE gets 19K in CMRR and there's a 6K gap, what are we gonna do about that gap? The average AE will say, well, you know, I'm just gonna close against what I've been given. That's the easy thing, right? That's the easy way out. But the best sellers in the world are radically accountable for that 6K gap. What are we gonna do to close that 6K gap so I can get to my 25K pipeline number, close at a 40% clip, and walk out in the sunset at goal? That's radical accountability. And then as the leader, and with your team, you could be strategic and apply pressure on how to close that gap so we can hit that number. Now, how do we become more radically accountable? For one, we gotta stop focusing on the uncontrollables. We have to focus on the things that we can control. That's it. I literally pour that into my squad. What can we control? If I showed a text message right now from this morning, literally, squad, new month, focus on those controllables. What can I control? My mindset, my energy, my behaviors, my activity, how I communicate cross-departmentally. These are all controllables that will impact the outcome. Next, we gotta stop leading with that victim mentality. We are not victims. And we know what that victimhood sounds like, right? Where you start placing blame, pointing fingers, convincing yourself. Like, yo, the fastest way to become a victim is to start sounding like a victim. So now, this is the accountability checklist that I use day in and day out with my squad. I want to share this with you guys. Completely free, download it. This is how I hold my team accountable. This is what I use day in and day out. And it's a great mirror test. And I call it the mirror test is because it's gonna force you to look yourself in the mirror and be accountable. Now, normally I would pivot out of this slide, but something happened about a month ago. That's another perfect example of radical accountability. So I'm about a week out from finishing out the month, and my team has a massive gap to goal. And we have this big deal on the table. It was a whale of a deal. And I can't figure out how to get this guy across the finish line. So in my mind, I'm like, man, what do we do? I'm thinking about my controllables. So I hit up our CRO, who I rarely bring in the deals, but he's like a mentor of mine. And I'm like, okay, let me just bounce some things off our CRO. So he hops on the call with me and my rep, and we're talking through every strategy, every resource that we have access to. And my CRO hangs up the phone. He goes, Ferg, I'm gonna call you back. I'm like, what is he doing? He calls me back an hour later, and he's headed towards the airport. The guy literally dropped what he was doing, went to the airport, and booked a red eye to the East Coast. Now, when he gets to the airport, they cancel the plane. They cancel the flight. And instead of coming back home, he sleeps on the floor at the airport, wakes up the next morning, goes to the East Coast, mends the relationship with the customer, comes back in the same day, and we close the deal 48 hours later. That's radical accountability. Now, can we do that with every deal? Hell no. But think about that. What do you think that did for me as a leader if I know that's the depth that my leader is willing to take? How do you think I reflect on my leadership skills if the person that I pulled into the deal is willing to leave his family and sleep on the floor at the airport? What? Incredible. I remember calling him like, oh my, bro, I gotta step my game up. Like, that's crazy. Made me a better leader that day. Radical accountability. Now, luckily, I was able to fight with every fiber, every ounce of my being to kick the oxy habit. I was on oxy for 10 years. It took everything in me to clear that. And once I cleared that, I remember thinking, what am I gonna do with my career now? Like, where do I go from here? I need to find something I could be competitive in and get stack ranked and, put forward that competitive juice. And of course, sales. Damn near fell in my lap, right? So I get into sales and I'm the guy working in the kiosk for Verizon. Like, you walk by, I'm trying to sell you, not just phones, but got protectors and all kind of stuff, right? Like, I'm that guy. I did that for 2.5 years. And then I finally got into my mind that I was gonna break into SaaS sales now that I had some experience. So I'm interviewing with every SaaS company in San Francisco, like anybody that would speak to me, and nobody wanted to take a chance on me. On paper, I was just working in a kiosk, right? But a recruiter one day was like, yo, I love your energy, love your spirit. Come to this mixer. I'll make sure you can get in, and you'll have FaceTime with all of the leadership. So I go to the mixer, right? And it's like a scene out of a movie, right? Like I'm next to the other candidate, we drink our beer, we look at each other, we see the guy across the hall, and we book it, right? Like that's what kind of scene it was. It was incredible. And I get the job. But now I gotta do the work. I'm like, clues, I have no clue what to do. I'm the third hire of a 100-person, 100-rep machine that they're about to build. So it's me and two other guys, desk about this close together, and we can hear each other on the phones, right, the entire time. The whole room is silent. And on my fourth day, a leader pulls me to the side and goes, man, you sound real urban on the phone. I remember going home, I told my wife, I said, I think somebody told me I sound black on the phone. It's really happened. What do you think this did to me, right? Like the next day, I show up trying to sound like Mike next to me. And I'm not Mike. Mike is like a middle-aged white guy. You know what I mean? No offense to white, I'm half white, but I mean, damn. Right? Like I show up trying to sound like the guy next to me. And before I know it, I'm a week away from being put on a PIP. And we all know in sales, right? Performance improvement plans, like you could get managed out of the business. So now I'm freaking out. And I finally have a come to Jesus moment with myself where I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna go out as me. Like if I'm gonna lose this job, I'm gonna go out, man, I gotta tap into that swaggy and be the Jason Ferguson that got me this job. And that's exactly what I do. And within 2.5 months of that day, I became the #1 seller in all of Cisco systems, mid-market and small business. I promise I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that because this is real life. This is real life. We are a one of one. You are a one of one. Your reps, your teams are a one of one. Right? Like, why show up as somebody else when you can show up as you? If you can have the courage to lean into a personality trait that is authentic to you, it could be your selling strength. If you can have the courage, if you could find the courage to show up as raw and imperfect, it just might make you the best seller in the room. Now, how do we become more authentic? How do we become more authentic? One, identify and amplify the characteristics that make you you. Take inventory, take stock. I know we've all been in our bodies for years. We know ourselves, but lean in. Take the moment, take the time to lean in. Identify and amplify those characteristics, those traits that make you special, that make you stand out from the pack, that nobody can duplicate or emulate quite the way that you do it. Next, reflect and embrace your core principles. What are your core values? What are your values? What principles do you stand 10 toes down on? Right? I know mine, right? Integrity, kindness, empathy, accountability. I take those core values and those characteristics that make me me, I merge those things together, and that's who I show up as. That's what makes you unique. And that could be your best or biggest selling strength. Now, you know, I could have came up here today and talked about sales process, right? Like spin, med pick, medic, now there's NEPQ. But nah, I believe that when it comes to the best sellers on the planet, it doesn't start with what you do. It starts with what you think. Thank you guys. That's all I got today.